In fact, Tamil Nadu Chief Minister O Pannirselvan has in fact written to Prime Minister Narendra Modi seeking his intervention to secure the early release of these 5 Tamil fishermen. Joining me now from Chennai is my colleague Shisha Reddy, also senior journalist R. Mani, who has been following the friction between the Tamil fishermen and Sri Lanka for a long time. Shisha, to you first. I believe protests have broken out in some of the fishing hamlets in southern part of Tamil Nadu. Get us a sense of what is happening on the ground there in Tamil Nadu.
Well, Sudhir, as far as this particular area is concerned, Rameshwaram, Thangachimadam, the normal life has come to a standstill. They have shut down all the shops in that particular town, and also the buses are not flying. And as soon as this court order came out, the families of the victims started protesting on the road. The buses are not flying. They in fact damaged the railway station in the Thangachimadam area, so buses are not flying. The entire life is in standstill, and the families of these victims urged that the central government should take some actions and work through the legal channel so that the life of these 5 loved ones does not hang in balance.
Right. Mr. Mani, this judgment has of course been delivered after due process of law over the last 3 years. Now, what kind of political ramifications do you expect to see in Tamil Nadu? Already parties like the DMK have spoken out against it.
In the state.
Yes, you are right. After due process of law only this judgment was delivered. Not only 5 Tamil fishermen but also 3 Sri Lankan fishermen. Totally 8 fishermen were sentenced to death in a drug case. This is a very serious offence. And you know how several countries in the world view drug peddling and related crimes. As far as the political ramifications in Tamil Nadu are concerned, I do believe that there will be some ramifications. After all, the political parties here, including few political parties who are totally thriving on the Sri Lankan issue, wants one issue or other to sustain their existence. Now, they will pick it up, this issue, and they will hit the streets. Already there are signs of it, and the state BJP president and a few Tamil groups have expressed their views on it. And so I think the political parties in Tamil Nadu who are exploiting the Sri Lankan situation for the past several years will definitely try to usurp this issue.
Right. So, Mr. Mani, would this be interpreted as some kind of a vindictive attitude on part of the Sri Lankan establishment against the Tamil fishermen?
No, I don't think that this is a vindictive action by the Sri Lankan government or by the Sri Lankan Navy. You see, after these people were arrested on charges of trading drugs somewhere in November 2011, due process of law was launched, and after a full-fledged trial only they were sentenced to death. I personally feel that the government of India should extend all legal assistance to these 5 unfortunate fishermen, because we don't know the details of the case. Excellent legal assistance, credible legal assistance must be provided to these fishermen to escape from the gallows, and I hope that the Sri Lankan Supreme Court will deal with this matter in a proper way.
Right. Mr. Mani and Shisha Reddy, thanks a lot for joining us there from Chennai. This is a story which we'll continue to track very closely. They're coming from Tamil Nadu. Now, Kerala is now partially a dry state. That got the stamp of approval after the Kerala High Court upheld the state government, the UDF government's liquor policy, and said 2-star and 3-star bars will have to shut down with immediate effect. Only 4-star, 5-star and heritage hotels have been allowed to actually operate bars in their premises. Joining me now is my colleague Rohini Swami, who has been tracking these developments coming in from Kerala. Now, the Kerala Bars Association, Rohini, has called this an unfavorable verdict. What are the voices that you are picking up on the street? How are people really reacting to this verdict by the Kerala High Court?
Well, there are mixed responses, I should say. On one side, there's jubilation because the fact that liquor has, they have broken many homes, they've created a lot of domestic violence in Kerala, and that is why the Kerala government took this step on the liquor ban policy. But on the other hand, there is absolute, especially when it comes to tourism, people who are related to tourism, be it hotels or people who are related to tourism in the industry, are upset with this kind of move. But though, yes, slightly relieved with the fact that it's only the 4 4-star and the 5-star hotels which will be serving liquor, but also we know according to the liquor ban policy that even beer and wine parlors will be allowed. So a kind of a relief, a kind of partial relief there, but the mixed voices and mixed reactions we are getting from the street.
Right, Rohini, the employment part as well as the tourism argument were the two arguments which were being put forth by the Kerala Bars Association. Now, will the fact that 4-star and 5-star hotels have been allowed to operate bars in their premises kind of take the sting out of the tourism part of the argument?
Well, in a way, yes. In a way, no. For the simple reason that when 4-star and 5-star hotels and the liquor rates that have been recently hiked by the Kerala government does make liquor very costly in Kerala, especially for the tourists. And also, if we see how Kerala thrives is also with its beach tourism, a lot of shacks in that area, they do not fall in the 4-star or 5-star category. They will be thoroughly affected, and there, yes, tourism will be affected. But yes, like you said, the sting may come out, be removed out of it. But the point is that the Kerala government says that they will take care of tourism through heritage tourism. Here, like we have very clearly seen, where the High Court has said that heritage hotels will be allowed. They're looking at heritage tourism to be propagated, looking at local tourism to be propagated. They're also looking at toddy, which is also local liquor. That also will be helped. That will also be brought into focus, which they're saying will help in terms of tourism. So in a way, yes, the sting has been removed, but 3-star and 2-star hotels will be shut shop. 670 of them will have to shut shop by tonight.
Yes, and that is going to be a huge development as far as Kerala is concerned. 670 bars, as Rohini was mentioning, will have to be shut later tonight. Going back to news from Tamil Nadu, contours of a new political alliance seem to be emerging, especially with the meeting between DMK leader Stalin and MDMK leader Vaiko. In fact, this took place at the wedding reception of PMK leader Anbumni Ramdas's daughter in Mahabalipuram last night. In fact, there has been considerable speculation whether the DMK is trying to stitch together a rainbow coalition for the 2016 assembly elections in Tamil Nadu against the AIADMK, especially after the conviction of Jayalalitha.
இது ஒரு கூட்டணிக்கான முதல் படியா? நீங்க விரும்புறீங்களா? உங்க விருப்பம் நிறைவேற அவ்வளவுதான்.
News now from Karnataka, where the Karnataka High Court was scathing in its criticism of the government as well as the schools for its laxity in actually making the schools a safe place to be in for the students. This came after the twin cases of rape of a 6-year-old in July this year and also of a 3-year-old nursery student this month in Bangalore schools. The court said that the government and the schools have not done enough to implement the safety guidelines and asked, when the government is not being a role model, how can it create orders? Joining me now from Bangalore is my colleague Pratibha Raman, who has been tracking the developments as far as the schools are concerned. Now, this was only to be expected with pretty half-hearted measures being taken up. The schools were saying that putting these safety steps in place would actually impose a financial burden on them. Now, the court has been pretty scathing in its observations. Where do you see this going next?
And Sudhir, it is but natural for the court to point out, because what they have observed is the fact that there's been absolute lack of coordination among the various departments. In fact, of the 4,000 aided and unaided schools, only 2,000 have implemented the guidelines 100%. And when you look at the government schools, there are about 50,000 of them all over Karnataka, and none of them seem to have fulfilled the guidelines. It's only a part of it that is still in process. And this is not the way a government must act, and that is what the court has observed here. And a simple excuse given by the government is that it is a huge financial burden on them. They point out that at least about 13,000 crores needs to be spent on implementing these guidelines in Bangalore alone. But now the way forward is to appoint a committee headed by an officer of at least the rank of additional chief secretary, who will monitor the effective implementation of all these guidelines, as well as see to it there's proper coordination among various departments. Sudhir.
Right. Pratibha, stay on with us. We have more news on the education front as far as Karnataka is concerned. Kannada medium does not really seem to be the flavor of the season, as 5,000 Kannada medium schools have actually applied to the government of Karnataka to be shifted to English medium. And Pratibha Raman spoke to the education department as well as the parents and some of the schools in this regard.
We have to place before the government, because the matter is still consideration. So at the highest level of the state government. So we'll take a decision as per this thing. But without applying to us and simply assume to declaring it, that's nowhere, I think, whatever I have read the portion of Supreme Court order, nowhere say that you become automatically. You have to take permission from the state government.
When I'm moving to places, English would be a universal language for me to opt for, and wherever I go, my child can follow and she or he can proceed further with her or education. So that's why I have opted for English language and not the state.
लेकिन मैडम वो डिसीजन लेना पड़ता है पेरेंट्स, उसका मालूम है बच्चा कौन सा मीडियम में पढ़ना है, उसका कहाँ हम ले जाना चाहिए, वो तो पेरेंट्स का मामला है, पेरेंट्स वो डिसीजन करते हैं, जो पेरेंट डिसीजन को सरकार उसका साथ देना, सरकार उसका साथ देना.
Government is blaming that schools are violating. It is absolutely wrong. You are supposed to permit as per the Supreme Court's verdict, and once everybody complies with that and cater the society with English medium, there will be no question at all violation of schools.
Pratibha, we heard those voices from the parents and the schools. It's pretty ironical that just 24 hours before 13 cities in Karnataka actually change their names to more Kannada names, the parents do not really want their children to actually study in Kannada medium schools. Is there a problem that the demand really is for the English medium schools as far as different towns and cities in Karnataka are concerned?
So even if you change the name Bangalore to Bengaluru, the whole cosmopolitan flavor of the city still remains intact, and that is what the parents really point out, because there are so many parents who have settled here in Bangalore from various other states. Why would they subject their children to a Kannada medium of instruction? And that is what the parents are objecting to. And plus, the respect or the love for the mother tongue will still remain intact, but then English being a universal language, that will be the way forward for their children if they have to go to different places and adapt to different circumstances, and that is what the parents point out. But the government, even though there is a Supreme Court verdict that ignores the fact that the language is not really necessary in terms of the medium of instruction, what is important is the education that needs to be given to all these children, and that is a fundamental right. And the government is pretty lackadaisical in terms of implementing that Supreme Court guideline.
Well, Pratibha, there would be many opinions as far as this subject is concerned, but definitely a reality check for the Karnataka government, especially the education department. Thanks a lot for joining us there from Bangalore. Now, Nokia connected to Tamil Nadu in 2006 when the first batch of mobile handsets were produced at this facility in Sriperumbudur. But from Saturday, the 1st of November, the phones will no longer ring at Nokia, as the company has decided to stop production. This comes ironically at a time when Prime Minister Narendra Modi speaks of Make in India. Shisha Reddy sent us this report.
Beulah cannot forget the 7th of October, the day Nokia told its employees that it will be suspending operations from November 1st. The 29-year-old, who worked in Nokia for 7 years, had no choice but to opt for voluntary retirement. She was earning 17,400 a month at the Nokia factory.
ரொம்ப மனசு ரீதியா ரொம்ப பாதிக்கப்பட்டோம். எல்லாரும் அப்படிதான். எனக்கு ரொம்ப தைரியமே வேலை தான். நிறைய லைஃப்ல கஷ்டப்பட்டிருக்கேன். ஆனா ரொம்ப தைரியமா இருப்பேன். எது வந்தாலும் ஃபேஸ் பண்ணிக்கலாம், பாத்துக்கலாம். அது என் வேலையை நம்பி தான் நான் தைரியமா இருந்தேன். அது மாதிரி அதுவே இல்லன்னும்போது நிச்சயமா எனக்கு என்ன பண்றது, என்னால வேற எதுமே முடிவு எடுக்க முடியல. என்ன பண்றதுன்னே தெரியல. அப்படியே தான் இருந்தது. அப்ப ஆரம்பிச்சது இப்ப வரைக்கும் எனக்கு உடம்பு இன்னும் செட்டே ஆகல.
Beulah, who played a part in connecting people the Nokia way, will now make faces more beautiful. Employment at a parlour will fetch her 4,000 rupees. 4,700 employees at the Nokia plant opted for VRS. But another 851 employees are hoping the government will intervene at the last minute. One such is 30-year-old Amal Raj, who works in the engine operation team at the Nokia facility center.
Nokia சொன்ன அதே வார்த்தை தான். யாருமே கைவிடாது அப்படின்ற மாதிரி அந்த மாதிரி ஏதாவது ஒன்று செய்வாங்கன்ற ஒரு நம்பிக்கையில் தான் நாங்கள் இருந்தோமே தவிர அது குருட்டு நம்பிக்கையில் இது வரைக்கும் நோக்கியா யாருமே கைவிட்டதில்லைன்னு சொன்னாங்க. ஸோ நாங்கள் இன்னமும் நோக்கியாவை நம்பிக்கிட்டு இருக்கோம். அதே மாதிரி வந்து கவர்மெண்ட்டையும் நம்பிக்கிட்டு இருக்கோம்.
At its peak, the Nokia factory was the world's largest mobile phone plant with at least 8,000 permanent employees producing at least 5 lakh mobile phones per day, which gradually came down to 1 lakh. But today, the Nokia's closure has put a question mark over the fate of its employees' livelihood and also the entire ecosystem that grew around it.
Unions argue that the state or the centre should come forward to take over Nokia. Like in the case of Nedli Lignite Corporation, a centre government-run company, where the Tamil Nadu government has acquired a 5% stake in the company, which the centre was planning to dilute to outsiders.
Nokia employment, if it is closed, it will affect tenants of houses in Sriperumbudur, Kanchipuram, Pundamalli, Tambaram and nearby area. Second, it will affect the domestic market near about Kanchipuram, Tiruvallur, Chennai area. Through ELCOT, government has manufacturing the many electronic materials. The same electronic materials can be produced in from this Nokia company campus.
While the ruling AIADMK and former DMK governments take pride in bringing the giant mobile factory to Tamil Nadu, this closure will be a dent in the Make in India slogan that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has been trying to propagate. With Srisha Reddy in Sriperumbudur, Bureau Report, Headlines Today.
The 5,000 employees there of Nokia are now hoping that the Tamil Nadu government will do something for them. That's it then on Up South this Thursday.